just headed out of Manly Boat Harbour, and we have a downwind run out to Green Island and then around St Helena and back this afternoon if the wind holds out. I did promise a boat tour in one of my previous videos in response to a comment about the Argie 15. So while we've got some easy conditions, now would be the time to see it all in action, I guess. So the Argie is 15'6" and a 6-foot beam, and it draws just over 3 feet with the centerboard down. It has 2 strakes, so it's a multi-chine design, and it initially feels a little bit tippy when you don't have much load in it. But as soon as that upper chine hits the water, it really does firm up. I've converted it to the as designed sloop rig. I had a balanced lug on it, but just couldn't get the pointing performance out of it that I was really hoping for. And my sailing ground's got a lot of shallow banks and channels, and sometimes you just need to be able to point nice and high and not have to tack forever up and down the channels. And I have to say, the sloop rig performs a hell of a lot better in terms of speed and pointing ability. There's absolutely no trouble getting it to point 45 degrees true. So yeah, you can see here the shrouds actually anchor to the centre thwart. That's a highly reinforced area, so I guess that's why he's done that. The shear of this boat is a little bit springy, so that could be why Dudley has designed it that way. You can see up the front I've got a little furler on it. My mate Rob gave me that, and it works really well. I've got my jib sheets on a continuous loop, so you can see I've just got one continuous loop, so I'm not you know, trying to dive into the other side of the boat and grab a flailing jib sheet. And so far that's worked alright. You can see on the back of the mast, that's my 2 halyards, jib halyard and main halyard, and they just go down into this storage compartment that I built. So that storage compartment is not part of the plan, it was something I added. So you can see I've just got a whole bunch of junk down in there. The idea being, if I do capsize, all that stuff won't float away. One thing with the Argie is it splashes a lot of water out of the back of the centerboard case. So what I've done is actually built this delicate cover. You can sort of see how that works, but and that has 100% stopped the problem. Moving back, main sheet, pretty straightforward. I have a little 3.5 horsepower on the back. It's a 4-stroke, and I have to say it's too much power for this boat if you just want to motor around. I really very rarely have it on more than about 1/4 throttle, and we can do 5 or 6 knots. So you could get away with something smaller, but that's what I could get locally. So, and I've got the Huntingford helm impeder, which you would have seen on one of my other videos, and the standard Argie rudder. It's got 3 flotation tanks, so you can see this rear seat is 1 tank, the centre thwart is 1 tank, and right up in the front is another tank. I actually built some other little tanks in here under the back seat, because when I did a capsize test I felt like it needed a little bit more flotation in the back end, and in fact the original plans do have that feature. It was something I actually overlooked when I built it originally. You can see I've built a foredeck on the front and an anchor locker up the front, which is separate from everything else, and that anchor locker self-drains, so you don't end up with mud and salt water and everything running up into that storage area at the front. I don't know, there's not much else to say really. This is a 125 sailing dinghy rig. It happens to match the Argie plans pretty well, and I picked it up second hand for a couple $100, which is about 1/10 of the price of getting a new one sewed by a sailmaker at the moment. If I think of anything else, I'll come back. In terms of performance, it's pretty easy to get 4 or 5 knots out of it in a light breeze like this. If you went really crazy, you could probably get 6 or 7 knots out of it, but given that we have a lot of things here that want to eat you, staying inside the boat and keeping the boat upright is my #1 priority. But yeah, look, 5 or 6 knots is very easy to achieve. You might be able to get it to plane, I don't know. Fairly stable, pretty easy to right after a capsize. I have a masthead float just because I do a lot of sailing on my own, and I never ever want to turtle the boat. Not much else to say really. It's a really very good design. One other thing I should point out, the main design change I did on this was I actually added 100mm of height to the freeboard. I don't know, just for a little bit of extra security and dryness. That's why this boat looks a little bit chunky compared to your average Argie when you look at it from the side. So far I've been happy with that decision. It just gives you something a little bit more solid to lean on when you're sailing along. It's banging into windward, you do get a little bit of spray coming up over the bow and onto this front storage area, but it's not too bad. Other than that, it's a pretty dry boat. Just taken the reef out, and yeah, I'm getting a really nice sail shape. It's a pretty old sail, it's 30 or 40 years old. I got it for $50, but it does the job, and eventually I'll get a new replacement. I had to do a few little modifications to it, like tying a reef, set of reefing points in it, and getting rid of the bolt rope and cutting the big baggy bit off the foot. Because it's a loose-footed sail, but it goes really well. Here we are, St. Helena bound. We're going to see if we can meet up with Spike, who's sailing down from Scarborough today. His boat needs a bit more wind than me, so I don't know whether he'll make it or not. blue hemisphere, my plan is to anchor in the bay on the north side of St. Helena. Over. So we've made it to the north side of St. Helena, which is just here. And actually you can see some of the old buildings up there, maybe in amongst the trees. There's still some old prison buildings and whatnot. Spike's just radioed me and he's just coming in from the northeast. Which is around this way. There he is. You can pick the carbon sails. He's right bang in the middle of those, between those two sand patches. So he won't be very far away. See you later. Righto, we're homeward bound, back to Manly. The boat literally just sails itself. It's quite impressive. Just got the main sheet completed and the helm and Peter tightened up hard, and we're just heading straight for the marina. Awesome. Gotta be happy with this. Well, our day is almost at an end, and so is everybody else by the looks of it. But we're just coming into the channel, into the Manly boat harbour. The wind is really starting to drop off, but I'm still able to make 3 knots against the tide, so that's not too bad. And there's the boat harbour just over there. We've got about an hour and a half of sun left, so it's rather spectacular.